Have you ever wanted to say no to your parents, but felt like you are the worst anak in the world? Like one word, no, suddenly erased all your love, all your sacrifices, all of the years that you were dutiful to your parents. And if you've ever felt that tension between being true to yourself and honoring your parents, you are definitely not alone. In this video, we're going to unpack why boundaries with Filipino parents feel so impossible. We're also going to talk about the three types of boundaries, and I'll answer some of the most common objections that Filipinos have when we try to set limits with our own family. Most importantly, we'll talk about how you can say no without losing respeto or without losing love for your family. Magandang umaga, hapon or gabi po sa inyong lahat. Ako po si Dr. Net. I'm a Filipino-American clinical psychologist. And I have dedicated my career helping Filipinos worldwide heal generational trauma through inner child healing, ancestral wisdom, and kapwa psychology. I was born and raised in the Philippines and I immigrated to the US as a young adult. And this is also where I went to grad school in San Francisco. And as a first gen Filipino, and also I bring, both personal and professional insight into the healing journey. Having grown up with anxiety and trauma myself, I deeply understand what it's like not to have those resources, not to have support when I was going through all of those. And all of these lived experiences have inspired me to create this, to create the Brown Psych here in YouTube and also in Instagram. Really, a space for us Filipinos that makes healing accessible while honoring our culture, heritage, and our kapwa community. So, if you grew up Filipino, you know the rule, right? Respeto sa magulang or respect for the parents. Hindi lang tayo nakikinig, we just don't listen. Nag-o-obey din tayo or sumusunod, right? Saying yes, even when we're tired, even when it hurts, is how we prove our love. This is rooted in utang na loob, which means debt of gratitude, hiya, and respeto or respect. Our parents sacrifice so much. So the least that we can do is also sacrifice ourselves in return. And if you don't, that's when the guilt whispers, Anak, wala ka bang utang na loob? Hindi ka ba magre-respeto sa amin? So right? They kept our families close through colonization, poverty, and migration. But the downside is this: they can make boundaries feel like betrayal. And if you've ever felt guilty for even thinking of saying no to your parents, type the word guilty in the comments because you are definitely not alone. And to help you begin untangling the guilt, I also created this free guide called Navigating Boundaries, a Filipino inner child's companion to healing guilt. It gives you heart centered scripts for saying no with compassion. The link is in the description. So, what are the three types of boundaries? We're going to start with the first one called the porous boundaries. Porous boundaries are when we say yes to everything, even when we mean no, even when it hurts. And with Filipino parents, this might look like always sending money back home, even when you can't afford it, or dropping everything for family, even if your health is already suffering, or letting your parents control your career, your love, because saying no feels unthinkable. On the outside, it looks like love. I get that. But on the inside, your inner child is screaming, do I even matter? Or do I even have a voice? And who am I really? So drop the word healing in the comments if you've ever felt like your parents' needs always drowned your own. On the other side, we also have this thing called rigid boundaries. So itong rigid boundaries are when you cut off completely, or ito yung sinasabi din nila na wall, right? When you stop answering calls, you avoid your family gatherings altogether, you build walls so high that not even love can get through. And this often happens when porous boundaries have been crossed for so long and you finally snap. And instead of saying, I need space, you disappear. Now, let me pause here because I have a very, very important reminder and disclaimer. Rigid boundaries are not always unhealthy. In fact, they have protected us too, especially when a relationship is violent, abusive, or strips you of your humanity, whether it's physical violence, sexual abuse, or ongoing emotional and spiritual abuse. These rigid boundaries are so necessary for our survival. There is no excuse for violence. Abuse is not just one argument or a single blow up. Many who chose to have no contact endured years and years, sometimes decades of harm before reaching that decision. Going no contact is not a betrayal, it is a form of protection and healing. And remember, our ancestors also resisted abuse too. And even as we record this, the protest in Manila just happened, right? We are recording this September 23 of 2025. And our kababayans in Manila are so brave and courageous that they are putting those rigid boundaries, tama na, to these corrupt government officials, to these corrupt contractors who are saying that there is a dam or there's a project that they finished, even though wala naman pala, even though there's really no project or ghost projects naman pala. And so our kababayans back home, and we are in solidarity with them, are like, no more na, tapos na, hindi na pwede. Right? Abuso na talaga ito. So kailangan natin ng rigid boundaries when it comes to that. So anyway, going back to where I was saying, pre-colonial Filipinos rose up against oppressive rulers and colonizers. They believed in protecting their loob or their inner dignity, and they fought back when their humanity was stripped away. So when you say this ends with me, you are not betraying your heritage. You are embodying it. So while rigid boundaries can sometimes block love in ordinary situations, in the context of abuse, they are an act of courage, of bravery, and ancestral strength. Have you ever judged yourself or been judged by others for creating distance from a parent? Remember, you don't owe anyone explanation. You don't owe anyone closeness to someone who consistently harmed you. So, if you're asking me what's the alternative, it's not the Western kind of boundary. It's this thing that I call healthy Filipino boundaries. And this is how it looks like. Healthy Filipino boundaries are not about pushing parents away. And the reason I put the word Filipino there is because there is a big difference when us Filipinos put a boundary and when a Westerner put a boundary. And so stick with me and I will explain that further. So these healthy boundaries are not about pushing parents away. They're about staying connected while staying whole. And they sound like, Ma, I can't talk right now, but I'll call you tomorrow, huh? Or Tatay, I can't send more money this month, but here's what I can give right now. I love you, but I need to decide this for myself. This is respeto. This is respeto too, but the respect that also includes ourselves. Kasi yun naman talaga ang ibig sabihin ng kapwa. Kapwa, if you really decolonize it, and if you go back to like what Virgilio Enriquez, the ama ng psikolohiyang Pilipino, was really talking about, he really makes sure that kapwa is also including ourselves in that circle of compassion. Hindi pwedeng ibang tao lang. Kasama tayo doon. We are included in that circle, in that respect. And here's the reframe also that you can use kung nahihirapan kang mag-set ng boundaries. Boundaries don't make you a bad anak. They make you a buong anak or a whole son or a whole daughter, a whole child, because when you are whole, your love is sustainable. So one of the things that I also say, right? So I have a lot of Filipino American clients in my practice. In fact, it's probably 90% at this point of my practice are Filipino Americans. And this is just also because like I have a social media presence. So people find me, and I'm also licensed in 43 states in the US now through SciPact. Anyway, going back to what I was saying, these boundaries, like when my Filipino American clients first come to me, they look like this. Ma, I've been telling you, you can't just show up in my door because I have a newborn daughter. Like, what are you doing? Right? It's like very rigid and very kind of confrontational. So when I say that you need to use that lambing or that really use that tone of voice, that's why I call it the Filipino healthy boundaries, like really Filipino style, is may kasamang lambing, which means yung tone of voice kailangan mahinahon, right? Like it has to be kind of like that tender and warm tone of voice. So instead of kunyari like your mom, this truly happened like with one of my Filipino American clients before. When I taught her how to kind of like do it Filipino style, Filipino healthy boundaries, it goes something like this. Ma, I understand that you want to visit us. We miss you also. And I know that you want to visit your new apo because she just had like her newborn baby. Would it be okay if I visit you like maybe on Tuesday or like tomorrow kasi medyo busy kami ngayon or something like that, right? So that is still a boundary. You don't have to call it boundary. It does not have to be that confrontational or angry. I know sometimes our parents can trigger us, but this is what I say that the boundaries have to be this bridge. It's really just a bridge or a tool of communication that you are using to communicate to the other person that these are your limitations right now. It's really as simple as that. So, anyway, I promised you that I will go to the five common rebuttals that I hear, when I teach this to my clients. So, here is the first one. But isn't obedience respeto? Yes, respect is sacred, but respeto is not one way because true respect includes listening to both sides. And healthy boundaries actually deepen respeto because you are showing your parents your truth while still honoring theirs. Number two, if I say no, my parents will think that I don't love them or that I don't have utang na loob. Ayan na naman yung utang na loob na yan, di ba? And again, like if you really decolonize what utang na loob means, right? Hindi naman talaga nababayaran yung utang na loob if you really look at the literature. But the thing is, like the colonizers really used utang na loob against us because they wanted to capitalize on that core value of Filipinos na utang na loob. So if you think in your mind na kailangan mong bayaran yung utang na loob, it's not because it's priceless. Ang utang na loob ay tinatanaw, hindi binabayaran. Okay? So love is measured by presence, also by care, by honesty. And saying no to something doesn't erase all your yeses. In fact, this boundary that you're setting allows your yes to mean more because it comes from your truth and not from obligation. Okay, going to the next one. The next one that I commonly hear is my parents sacrificed everything. Who am I to say no? Again, that utang na loob runs deep in our generations. But can I just remind you that your parents did not sacrifice so that you can lose yourself, so that you can erase yourself. They sacrificed for us, our ancestors sacrificed for us so we can thrive, so we can have a fuller life, so we can have the lives that they didn't get to have. And so through us, through our own lives, they are living vicariously through us. Through us, they are healing as well. So honoring them includes honoring the daughter they raised you or the son that they raised you to be. Okay, number 4, rebuttal. Boundaries are selfish. Family comes first. I get it because many of us were taught self-sacrifice as the highest virtue. But here's the reframe. Boundaries are not selfish. They're actually so self-preserving. And when we preserve ourselves, we prevent that burnout. And then we can extend ourselves when our family actually needs us. Kasi pag burnout ka na, or pag nagkasakit ka na when you're sick, who else will help the family, right? Like who can be there for the family? A burnt out daughter cannot love fully. A whole daughter can. And boundaries protect your ability to give without resentment. Okay, the next one, popular one. But if I set my boundaries, my tatay, my nanay, my dad, my mom will be angry. It is true. That might happen. And that has happened to some of my clients initially. But any change, it really feels threatening. In the field of psychology, we have this thing called homeostasis. So ibig sabihin nun, like even after years and years that you haven't seen your family, and of course you've evolved, you've changed, the moment that you set foot at the door, that homeostasis or like the old family patterns and dynamics come back, right? But the thing is, when you are setting these boundaries, it will feel uncomfortable at first, but this is going to be temporary. This temporary conflict is not a permanent rejection. Over time, consistent, healthy boundaries teach your family how to love the real you, not just the obedient version of you. So tell me in the comments which of these rebuttals hit closest to home. Comment below. I would love to hear from you. And to even support you more, I created this Pagbabalik Loob, 5 basic sacred steps to begin your Filipino inner child healing journey. It's free and it will help you reconnect to your loob, the part of you that knows your worth. Link is in the description. And if you're also ready to go deeper, this is what we do week after week at the Helam Collective. This is our membership for the Brown Site. This is a group of Filipinos breaking generational trauma, Filipinos from across the world. We have weekly events, including creative writing workshops. We have Kapwa Connect, where we just have fun and get to know each other. We have inner child work. And then we also have the didactic lessons where I give kind of like a lecture style. And then at the end of it, there's a Q&A session where you can ask me anything. So we have weekly events. And then we also have on-demand live videos for you, um, which are like the 12 steps for inner child healing or inner child work. So all of those are included in our membership. So I can't wait for you to check it out. It's like deeply embedded in Filipino psychology and our cultural heritage and also our kapwa community. So here's the truth that I want you to carry. Boundaries are not betrayal. They are bridges connecting your loob with others while protecting your lalim. So when you practice healthy boundaries, you're not rejecting your parents. You're teaching your inner child that love can exist without self erasure. It's a beautiful modeling, really, for the next generation. And that's the kind of love our families and our future generations deserve. So, for so long, I thought that saying no made me a bad daughter. I carried that guilt every time I chose myself. But through my inner child healing, through my own healing journey, I realized that boundaries don't erase love. Because if I am not true to myself, it's like I'm also depleting, and I'm also depriving my own inner child the love that she really truly deserves. So when you do this inner child work, it really encompasses like so many different facets of your healing journey. That's why I'm a big believer, and that's why I teach it to my community. And so, by the way, in our next video, it's called Pagod na ako, when our family drains our spirit. We'll talk about what happens when family expectations, unspoken resentments, and constant demands leave you feeling small, guilty, or exhausted. And I'll show you there again on how healthy boundaries, how this really look like. These are not walls, but really bridges and fences. And I have a great analogy there that maybe can expound a little bit more of your understanding of what boundaries look like, because I get it. In our Filipino community, we do not do boundaries and we do not talk about it, right? Because like we are always like deep in the collective, and especially like with the colonizers and the colonial history, nakalimutan natin na we also have to include ourselves in the kapwa. So most importantly, our inner child healing helps us move from exhaustion into kapwa. So check that video out and don't miss it. This is Dr. Ned signing out for right now. And again, reminding you that our healing is our resistance. I'll see you in the next one.